it sets you up, you know. And then you think, now, okay, now what? The band breaks up, and you have to keep going with your life. And but the old songs, they never go away, you know. It's not like, I'm glad I'm not a comedian, you know, because you tell a joke and people go, ah, I've heard that one. Tell us another one. You know. But songs, it's like, let me play a new song. No, I don't play a new song. Play an old one. I'm glad I've got, you know, a few songs and not just the one. That would be a bit much, just having one song that people remember. Especially at Christmas time, you know, because you'd be at your families and eventually someone would go on then, play that song. Till they drag you away, you know. Some 11-year-old has never heard of you and you're making her cry. But yeah, so it was called Men at Work, my old band. People get them mixed up because people don't really care about music. I mean, probably you guys do, but most people, music's just to look at or listen to and they're drying their hair, you know, and before they get ready to go out. So I got pulled up by the police a while ago in Malibu for not being famous enough. And the policeman looked at me and he recognized me. Well, I thought he recognized me, and he ended up not giving me a ticket. He just said, just drive a little slower, okay? And I said, yes, thank you very much. And then he looked at me and he said, flock of seagulls, right? And I said, that's correct. Flock of seagulls. He said, yeah, I never forget a face. I thought, fuck, I wouldn't mind getting him in a lineup. That wasn't him. But it's funny that, you know, you're at airports and people say the strangest things. A man said to me once, now I remember you. I go, yeah, and he goes, no, which one were you? And I said, and he goes, no, don't tell me. You were the Indian, right? I didn't even twig at the time. I walked off, oh, that's right. I must have been that guy with the construction hat that did it. That's the connection. Just when you take yourself a bit too seriously. Okay, well, I'm going to ask some of my new best friends to come and help me play these songs, because I've always wondered what those Men at Work songs would sound like, bluegrass style. So now we're going to find out. Please welcome the Steam Canyon Rangers to help me play these songs. I've never met Bob Dylan, you know. I'd like to meet him and maybe work with him. You know, not writing a song or anything, maybe just fixing a car. Just be good, wouldn't it? With a hood open, seeing Bob with the crack of his bum showing, you know, leaning back saying, yeah, it's the alternator, it's the alternator. Maybe just go to Costco with Bob would be good too, you know, with the big carts, you know, and walking down the aisle with Bob Dylan. What do you need, Bob? I need toilet paper. I need a lot of toilet paper. Funny wee man, isn't he? It's funny, hysterical. Can write a tune though, that's for sure. This is not a Bob Dylan song. But for a while there, I tried to figure out my life according to what I thought Bob would do. Because when people asked me to do certain things, I thought, I wonder if Bob would do this. And if I thought he would, then I'd do it. It lasted about 3 days. 2, 3, 4. Looks like this may well be it. Yeah, we're going down. ocean's fast approaching and there's a screeching sound. Wrote that old black box that they all listen to. Last words that were spoken were, what would Bob do? 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 Standing on the steps to console, kind of otherworldly, inside there was a cloak. I was led in by a stranger who I'd seen somewhere before. Thought, well, it'll come to me here in the evermore. Suddenly from out of nowhere, a vision did appear. Was my old granddaddy. He said, son, what are you doing here? Well, it wasn't in my plans, you know. I done come unstuck, down on my hands, and I just ran out of luck. He said, well, if you can pop the black, then you know it's not the cue. Maybe time to ask yourself, what would Bob do? 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 You may well just find yourself on the ballroom floor. You know you cannot get away, you cannot reach the door. Just try to relax yourself and sit down on your hips. You don't have to move too much and try not to lick your lips. You kiss a gun at you and she hasn't moved away. You can think a little easier and think of what to say. If you spin around and she is gone, you know it's not with you. You may think yourself, what would Bob do? 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 I was standing by a house, going up in smoke. It really was no joke. Cap it off, I'm naked and there's people all around. I could see an old dog barking, but I couldn't hear the sound. The only thing that I could hear that came out of the blue was a voice inside my own head saying, what would Bob do? 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 As luck would sometimes have it, the good Lord was in my dreams. He was smiling sweetly and he was wearing Lincoln green. I asked if he would come again, if the stories were all true. He thought a while and spoke and said, now what would Bob do? 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 And as the lights they all come down, I was standing by the stage. He was cloaked in darkness and his face it showed no age. I took one step closer just to get a better view. I swore I saw him smile and say, now what would Bob do? 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 And I suddenly awakened and I simply can't pretend to understand the way of things and how it all may end. But if the question's simple, say, do I wear red or blue? Now they're the times to ask yourself, what would Bob do? 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 That was alright, wasn't it? Oh yes, can I have a guitar? Can I have a guitar?